Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Several Republican lawmakers in Minnesota released a statement yesterday officially calling on the state's Democrat governor, Tim Walz, to resign in light of the unfolding fraud scandal that has spiraled during the past month. We have the latest update for you. Republicans' best shot at keeping the House in 2026 could rest with a crucial Voting Rights Act case that's before the U.S. Supreme Court, and it's putting some senior Democrat leaders in the hot seat, including the lone Democrat in the South Carolina congressional delegation. Violent crime declined nationwide in 2025, but a new survey shows several U.S. cities moving in the opposite direction, reporting increases in homicides, rapes, robberies, or aggravated assaults, even as the national trend improved. We have that breakdown for you as well. And Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, joins us for his 2026 political predictions and his response to President Trump's meeting with the Ukrainian president on Sunday. It's another busy day. Let's get started.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Minnesota isn't just dealing with a fraud scandal anymore. This thing is turning into a political earthquake. And wow, the ground shook a little bit harder late yesterday afternoon. A group of Republican lawmakers in the state, Senators Bill Leaskey and Nathan Wessenberg, along with Representatives Marge Fogelman, Drew Roach, and Mike Weiner, issued a public statement calling on Governor Tim Walz to step down, to resign. Not censure, no apologies, resign. Leave the office immediately. Now, their words were pretty blunt. Minnesotans have been watching the fraud crisis get worse and worse for years. It has gone on long enough, they told the governor. They say this isn't a stunt. It's not about political theater. They say they've waited. They've given Walz time to act, and nothing has changed. And they're pointing to the Minnesota Constitution, Article 8, Section 6, which says a governor can be recalled for serious malfeasance or failure in official duties. And look, I think you can certainly say that Governor Tim Walz has failed in his duties with this growing scandal in Minnesota. Now, they didn't launch a recall today, but make no mistake, this was a warning shot across the bow. And it's happening because this fraud scandal has blown wide open. What started as headlines about a food program and the abuse there, social services funding, has now ballooned into something that is just staggering. Federal prosecutors say losses may reach $9 billion. How does this happen? How does someone like Tim Walz and anybody in a senior leadership position in government allow something like this to happen? The alleged fraud concentrated in programs serving the Somali community, money intended for vulnerable Minnesotans, children, families siphoned away, red flags ignored for years and years, we're told. $9 billion. You could pave roads. You could fund police departments, build schools, and with just a fraction of that, improve a lot of people's lives. And instead, we're talking front companies, ghost daycares, empty buildings raking in state funds like a broken ATM. And then came the video. You've likely seen it by now. If not, search for it. Go to YouTube and search for Nick Shirley. His investigation has over 100 million views now. He walks into these supposed child care centers, no kids, lights off, locked doors, signs misspelled, and millions in government checks flowing in and have been for years. And this is a 23-year-old YouTube journalist, and he uncovered this. Be sure and check out my YouTube channel. I did a segment on this yesterday. Just go to YouTube, search for Joey Hudson, and you'll see it very prominently displayed there. I mean, this young man, Nick Shirley, has just uncovered a landmine there. So what is the governor saying? Well, his office says he's been strengthening oversight, closing programs, hiring outside auditors, the usual political mumbo-jumbo. He wants people to know he's been trying, he says. Republicans, though, a growing number of regular Minnesotans, they're not buying it. Their statement says this scandal is the number one complaint they hear from voters. People want to know, where did the money go? How was this allowed for years? Why has no one held these groups accountable? How do you have daycare centers that are empty year after year receiving $600,000 to $1.5 million or more? Some of these locations that Nick, this young man, went to have been getting $1.5 million annually, and there was nobody there, nobody to be found. Surely the state has some type of accountability programs in place. Surely a local, I don't know, codes enforcement officer inspected the building annually, do they not? The Republicans are accusing Walz of just not acting when duty required it, not stopping the crisis as it grew, literally just having his head in the sand. Look, I'll tell you the problem. Tim Walz was out parading around the country last year with Kamala Harris running for vice president and wasn't paying attention with what was going on in his own state. Now, this is a problem that didn't happen just in the past year, though. This has been ongoing. And again, it took a YouTube journalist, a young man, 23 years old, and this is no disrespect to this young man. When you watch his video, Nick Shirley's a smart young man. But really, he could find it. At one point in an interview, he said it was so simple to find that a kindergartner could find it. So let's just pause here. We're watching something bigger than just this one scandal. This touches a raw national nerve. You've got government oversight failures, tax dollars wasted that we'll never get back, culture of corruption, and you got a bunch of people who are in this country who shouldn't be here anyway, Somalis, literally sending that money back to their country, because I guarantee you that's what's been happening. If you saw some of the people who apparently it appeared they live in these child care centers, and somebody is paying them probably minimum wage and giving them a place to live there, and they're funneling that money back to Somalia, to some scheme back there. And we've allowed it to happen. The federal government and Tim Walz and his government, his state government in Minnesota has allowed this to happen. If billions can disappear without consequences, the public will eventually revolt, I believe. I don't think that they can just walk away from this one and say, well, we lost the money, but we're going to change our system so it doesn't happen again. No. This isn't just Minnesota's problem. This is a message to every state capital. You got to get your act together. People don't mind paying their taxes when roads are paved, when schools are built, when grandma gets her medicine, but when $9 billion evaporates in the thin air while families struggle to afford groceries, when fraudsters buy houses while parents pay higher property taxes, while foreigners get our money and they thumb their nose. I mean, they literally were offended that this young man was questioning them on where the money went. At one point, they had people, he had people, Somalis, running around them, yelling and screaming like he was invading their territory. You don't often hear lawmakers like this call for the resignation unless they believe one of two things. They think the governor's weak enough to fall, or they know the scandal is only going to get bigger. So you tell me, which is it here? You think they believe that Tim Walz is weak enough that maybe he'll come down on this one? Or do you think that they believe this is only going to balloon? I believe it's probably a combination of both. Because, again, if this young man can drive around in an afternoon and visit, 6 or 8 locations and uncover about $25 million in fraud, you know there's many more of these daycare centers out there. There's many more of these autism centers out there. There's many more of these supposedly medical transportation systems out there. It is sickening that this has been allowed to happen, to go on this long, and it's time that somebody looks into it and stops it. Everyone says they'll start after the holidays, and that's exactly why most people never tackle those extra pounds at all. Joey Hudson here. Right now, PhD Weight Loss is making it easy to start before the new year with a bonus designed to get you moving now. They're adding 2 free weeks to your program. That means you can ramp up during the holidays and start the new year already working towards your goals. Those 2 free weeks mean you won't roll into January feeling behind. You'll hit January already losing, already feeling better, already in control. PhD's metabolic reset system teaches your body to burn fat first. No drugs, no starvation diets, no endless workouts, just a smarter science-based system that fits real life. And when you mention 2 weeks on the phone, they'll waive your consultation fee and pay for the cost of your food during the entire program. There's no reason to wait, no reason to repeat last year. Call PhD Weight Loss today and start 2026 already ahead. 864-644-1900. Call today. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Don't wait. Do it today. The good news is violent crime has declined nationwide in 2025. The bad news is a new survey shows that several U.S. cities are moving in the opposite direction, reporting increases in homicides, rapes, robberies, aggravated assaults, even as the national trend has improved. So here's where we are. So, survey from the Major Cities Chiefs Association. It covers violent crime reporting between January and September 2025 and the same period in 2024. The survey tracked 4 categories: homicides, rape or sexual assault, robbery, and aggravated assault. The survey found that total violent crime nationwide decreased compared with the same period in 2024 across all 4 key categories, and that is good news. Homicides, 2025 versus 2024. In 2025, there was about 1,000 less homicides, which is great. That's the right direction. Rapes, there was just over 1,000 fewer rapes nationwide as well. Robberies, down, there was 66,501 in 2025, 81,860 in 2024. So a substantial decrease in robberies. And aggravated assault, likewise. In 2025, there was 194,804 recorded. In 2024, that number was 216. So we have the right trend going here. The association cautioned, though, that the numbers are preliminary and based on voluntary reporting by participating law enforcement agencies. So here's a list, though, of cities and metropolitan areas where violent crime rose locally despite this national trend. And the question you have to ask yourself is why? How did these cities, and some are kind of unlikely, but why did these cities see increases when nationwide we saw a decrease? Let's take, for example, Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha reported increases in all 4 violent crime categories: the homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. This, again, according to the Major Cities Chiefs Association. Atlanta, Georgia, just down the road from my home area. Again, Atlanta saw year-over-year increases in rape, in robbery, and aggravated assault. Again, bucking national declines across those categories. Why is that? What are other cities doing around the country that Omaha and Atlanta are not? Another example, Columbus, Ohio. Columbus reported increases in all the categories as well, even though we saw a decrease nationally. Los Angeles. Now, this is not a surprise, not to me anyway. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reported increases in rape and aggravated assault between those 2 years, according to the preliminary data. Tampa, Florida's on the list. Tampa saw increases in rape and robbery. Again, these two categories had declined in other areas, and particularly in cities this size. Suffolk County, New York, the suburban county east of New York City, reported increases in homicide and robbery. Wichita, Kansas, on the list as well. They saw year-over-year increases in homicide and rape. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, also reported increases in rape and aggravated assault. Denver, Colorado, same. They saw increases in rape. And Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they saw a rise in rape, even as national violent crime totals declined overall. Violent crime is trending downward in major U.S. cities as President Donald Trump continues to focus on federal attention on combating violent crime. And the Trump administration, they're very quick to take credit for a lot of this, as they should, because they have let it be known that they're going to give law enforcement the resources they need in order to combat any increase in violent crime. And speaking of violent crime, in Utah yesterday, there was a big development in the case of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of assassinating Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk back in September. And for a case that has sparked national attention, public access, transparency, and how much the court lets us see has become a fight of its own. The defense attorneys are fighting tooth and nail to try to keep this as private as possible. Prosecutors want it to be as transparent as possible, as it should be. So a judge ruled this week that the transcript and soon the audio of a previously sealed hearing will be released. Not fully, but most of it. We're talking about 246 words redacted out of 80 pages, according to the report. That's a lot of transparency compared to what we've seen so far, but still, people want to know what's behind those black bars where this young man is being held. Judge Tony Graff from the 4th District says it'll take about 2 weeks to scrub the audio and make that public as well. We're seeing him walk a tightrope here, folks, balancing transparency with security and keeping this case from turning into a media circus, which it could very easily happen. And also, with a case like this, one involving a public figure like Charlie Kirk, you've got political tension. You've got a capital murder charge. Transparency isn't a luxury. It is a necessity. For people who have already wanting to go down all of these various scenarios of what could have happened or did not happen, a lot of conspiracy theories are surrounding Charlie Kirk's death. Transparency is so important. It is necessary in this case. So, this closed-door hearing was back on October 24th. It begins with Robinson's attorneys asking the court to unshackle one of his hands so he could take notes during the proceedings. Court security pushed back. Discussions happened off the record. The bailiff's remarks are entirely blacked out. We still don't know why. Maybe safety concerns, maybe flight risk details, maybe threats made. We don't know. Robinson himself barely spoke. One brief answer to the judge, then silence throughout the rest of the hearing. Graff told attorneys he intends to move carefully with access. Quote, he said, better to take more time than be rash and miss the mark. We'll see if that caution restores any trust or potentially raises more questions. Now, for anybody who's just kind of getting caught up on this, of course, Charlie Kirk was assassinated September the 10th at Utah Valley University. One bullet, one fatal injury to the neck. Robinson allegedly drove home 4 hours to southern Utah, confesses to his roommate, who is also his partner, and to his parents. They helped convince him to surrender. He's now facing 7 charges, including aggravated murder. And yes, the death penalty is on the table, and that's why it's so important that the judge get this right. Media outlets, including Fox News, requested intervention, asking for notice anytime the court wants to seal proceedings or ban cameras. The judge denied that request, but said that both sides must inform media before trying to push future hearings behind closed doors. Cameras aren't banned, but they're limited. No constant close-ups of Robinson. No zoom on notes. No high-emotion tight shots. Graff wants order in the courtroom, and he wants all the attorneys and all the parties involved to feel comfortable that they're going to get a fair trial. Now, Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, has been pushing hard to keep cameras in the courtroom, arguing that the nation deserves to watch justice unfold. I would agree with that. You can understand why. Again, it's not just a crime. It was an assassination at a political event. People want answers. They want to know his motive, ideologies, influences, accomplices, if any red flags. Silence and secrecy only feed the suspicious nature of this crime. And again, there's so many theories out there already, conspiracy theories, some even suggesting that Charlie Kirk is not even dead. I don't know how you make that argument. We saw him. But still, there's some conspiracies out there who are saying, well, that his own security guards were in on the crime. So here's what we have. Robinson scheduled January 16th for a longer in-person hearing. The defense is already moving to remove a prosecutor from the case, arguing that a relative of that prosecutor was present at the event where Charlie Kirk was shot. Was this a conflict of interest? I think it's probably far-reaching, but again, I think you err on the side of caution here. We'll see how the judge rules. That hearing could get pretty tense, and it's coming up in just a couple of weeks. This trial will likely be very lengthy, and frankly, it needs to be, because they need to leave no stone unturned. For the legal system, for political violence in America, for the Kirk family and the conservative movement that he helped build, we need to have the right answers for this. This is more than a murder trial. It's going to test the transparency of the court. It's going to test the trust of the court and whether justice can be seen and believed by the American people. And that's the key here. And I think the judge recognizes this. People have to be comfortable with the final verdict in this, or these conspiracies will continue. We'll see where this heads, but it's going to be a long, long trial for sure. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Midterm elections in 2026, of course, are going to be very, very important to the GOP and to President Donald Trump, for him to be able to continue his implementing the things that he promised he would do in last year's election, and that the American people are expecting him to do. A key case that is going before the Supreme Court could give Republicans a good shot at keeping the House in 2026. And there's some Democrats who are on the hot seat because of it. The balance of power, literally, of the U.S. House could hinge on a major Supreme Court case, and Democrats in several southern states are watching very nervously. The justices are reviewing Louisiana versus Callis. It's a challenge to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. That's the provision that has long been used to create majority-minority districts. Those districts have historically favored Democrats, especially in red states with large black populations. Conservative justices signaled during arguments that they may be ready to scale this back. or even strike it out completely. If that happens, a lot of political analysts say that Republicans could gain as many as 9 House seats in 2026, potentially enough to help them keep their narrow majority in a cycle where history usually favors the party that is out of the White House, the Democrats in this case. Democrats most at risk include Louisiana's Cleo Field, Troy Carter, South Carolina, my Palmetto State's Jim Clyburn, Tennessee's Steve Cohen, Mississippi's Benny Thompson, Alabama's Representative Shamara Figures, and Terry Sewell, and Missouri's Wesley Bell, all representing districts that are built around minority voting strength. If Section 2 fails, GOP legislatures could redraw many of those seats, shifting several safe blue districts into swing or even Republican-leaning territory. Now, none of this is guaranteed. The ruling could be narrow, or states could respond differently. Still, with Republicans holding the House by just a few votes and Trump pushing for aggressive mid-decade redistricting, this case could become one of the most consequential political decisions of the year. And again, Republicans' best shot at maintaining a majority in the U.S. House. Some estimates say that they could pick up 9 or more. There's other scenarios that they could pick up more than the 9 already talked about. In practice, this law has been used to create these minority congressional districts. For example, you look at Jim Clyburn in South Carolina. He is the sole Democrat serving South Carolina and Washington, and he's one of the most prominent members of the U.S. House. Widely seen as responsible for saving Joe Biden his failing 2020 bid for the Democrat presidential nomination. Joe Biden has given Jim Clyburn credit for putting him in the White House. Now, some state Republicans are believed to be contemplating the possibility of reconfiguring Representative Clyburn's 6th congressional district if the Supreme Court hands down a favorable decision. The Clyburn told NBC's Meet the Press, "I'm the 9th black congressman from South Carolina. The problem is there are 95 years between number 8 and number 9. And he's right. He said, "I believe that we are approaching with the Supreme Court could very well result in the next century being one that will repeat that which took place in the previous century in 1877. Now, the question is going to be this. Yes, the Supreme Court likely will strike that and will likely give states the opportunity to take advantage of that. The question is going to be, will states like South Carolina take advantage of it, or will they not have the stomach to fight the fight to eliminate a totally black district? I mean, on the surface, if you look at Jim Clyburn's district geographically, it makes no sense. It takes in counties from one side of the state to the other side of the state, and it rambles and meambles. Is that a word, meamble? It is a gerrymandered district. You can see it just by looking at it. If that were a Republican district, the Democrats would be standing on their heads. But since it was drawn that way, in order for Jim Clyburn to keep his seat, they're okay with it. But some of the others that named, Steve Cohen, not all the potential beneficiaries of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act are black. Republicans could get an opening to carve up Steve Cohen's, he's a Democrat from Tennessee, his 9th congressional district. Cohen is the sole congressional Democrat from Tennessee and the only member of the state's delegation to represent a district with a majority black population. In fact, his district has the second highest percentage of black residents of any congressional district in the country after Representative Benny Thompson. Speaking of Benny Thompson, like Cohen and like Representative Clyburn, Thompson is the sole Democrat in his state's congressional delegation as well. He's also the former chairman of the House Select Committee on January 6th and was pardoned by President Biden in his final hours in office. The congressman has warned that the Supreme Court's decision could prompt Mississippi Republicans to dramatically change his 2nd congressional district in such a way that he would not be able to win re-election. He said on the day of the oral arguments in Mississippi that could make it hard for black voters in the 2nd District to have a say. We can't let decades of progress be undone. But again, I ask you, if a district were drawn for a white Republican, would Democrats be okay with that? No, they wouldn't. But they think it's okay to draw a special district for a black Democrat. Terry Sewell, Democrat from Alabama, 7th Congressional District, was established as a majority-minority district in 1992, again, due to the Voting Rights Act. Given that Alabama Republicans have recently tried to prevent the drawing of Figure's district as a majority-minority, they could turn their attention to Sewell's district as well if the Supreme Court frees them up to do so, and again, if they have the stomach to do it. And again, there's a whole list here. Cleo Fields. His district is at the center of Louisiana, this major case, given that his 6th congressional district is in the crosshairs, because, again, this is the case that is before the U.S. Supreme Court. It's safe to say that Representative Cleo Fields, Democrat from Louisiana, is one of the most at-risk lawmakers in the Voting Rights Act case. Republicans in Louisiana were forced to redraw the 6th congressional district as a second black majority last year due to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, following a protracted redistricting fight in the courts. Despite many observers believing that the Supreme Court was poised to upend Section 2, Mr. Fields was somewhat optimistic after oral arguments, thinking that the court will leave it alone and his district will be okay. But again, I have a problem with this whole idea that this is what we should be doing in order to protect these Democrat districts, and in most cases, black Democrat districts. On our guest line, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, Drew McKissick. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. We, of course, headed into the 2026 this week. Let's talk for a minute and get that crystal ball out. I know you have the GOP crystal ball. And let's look ahead to 2026. What do you see as some opportunities for the GOP, not only here in South Carolina, but around the country as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, here in South Carolina, of course, we've got the statewide races next year. All the constitutional offices are up. We've got 5 candidates right now running for governor, 3 for attorney general, some other statewide races, and then plus state house seats and so forth, 2 open congressional seats. So we've got a lot of work to do. Our job is going to be focused around putting together the organization and the manpower that we need so that once the primaries are over, we've got what we need in order to do our job, which is to be the generic Republican voter turnout machine to help all of our candidates up and down the ballot. Yeah. Nationally, though, look, from an issue standpoint, I think this is the Republicans' big opportunity. So just writ large nationally and obviously the impacts here in South Carolina, from a messaging standpoint in terms of what we're looking at with the economy right now. I mean, we saw just last week that we are now at 4.3% annualized economic growth, which is an incredible number. We've seen the week before inflation down to 2.7. I think it's the best in 4 years, I believe, so far. Gas prices are down. I paid, I think, $2.25, I think, to fill my car up last week.
Well, and you paid
energy prices overall.
You paid too much. Sorry to interrupt. I paid $2.19 the other day. Yeah. Can you believe that?
I mean, it's really, I think in the last several months, we've seen it about, on average, close to 50 cents, just based on just my personal, fill-ups. But not just that, energy prices overall coming down. We've seen, and this is important, wages adjusted for inflation are going up for the first time in a long time. Yeah. So more actual real money, even adjusted for inflation in people's pockets, which is an important trend we need to see continue. And then you couple that with the other things, that Donald Trump said he was going to do and that we've seen happen. The number of government workers is down about 250,000, federal government workers. That is an incredible number because, obviously, government workers don't produce anything. They cost. We have to pay them plus the cost of whatever they do to the economy. And then the massive number of illegal immigrants that we've seen removed from the country approaching 2.4 million plus or something like that. That's a rate of like 200,000 a month, by the way.
Yeah.
And that affects rent prices. Rent prices, nationally for a home are down. Why? Because you've got fewer people now who are looking for starter homes because they've been moved out of the country.
Yeah.
All this stuff is going to ripple through the economy, help Republicans, but they have to message it. And that's the opportunity, and that's, led by the president, equating what's happening to what we said we were going to do.
Yeah. Drew McKissick is chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party on our guest line today. Mr. Chairman, I've seen all the numbers that you just discussed with us there. The economy, we're just getting such great news on that. Is that getting to the level, though, to the average American? Because, and I want to give you an example, over the Christmas holidays, of course, I saw people I haven't seen in a while, and a friend, an elderly friend of mine, she is very concerned. She said, I can barely afford to buy groceries. Is it going to trickle down to the masses fast enough for it to help in 2026?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. Absolutely. And that you've got two moving parts there. Two things are important. One is obviously for the administration to continue to do what it's been doing because it is working. Now, do we hope it works faster? Yes. Is it continuing to go in the right direction? Yes. Will it be enough to really cut, with the average person by the time we get to, say, Labor Day, of the coming year? That's what you want to see. But then on the other side, from the political side, you got the messaging aspect of it. So, if people, need to hear Republicans talk about what's actually happening. And because you can't rely on the mainstream media to let them know about it.
Right.
Sort of like this, massive, welfare fraud we have in Somalia, basically in Minnesota to the tune of about $9 billion, the estimates are, which I don't think any network other than, say, Fox has covered it. So you can't rely on them to get our message out. And that comes back to the president leading the Republican messaging effort, because people have to know that what you're doing is relevant to them on a daily basis. And so the best example I can give with that is things like grocery prices and gas prices.
Yeah.
You see that about every other day. When you go fill up the tank,
Right.
When you go to the grocery store, that hits you right in the face. The other thing, though, is people that you know, or even you yourself, having a job. Because you've had 2.5 million people now removed from this country in 11 months, somebody has filled those jobs because the economy is still adding jobs. So that means you have more native-born Americans who have moved into the jobs that they previously occupied. That's good for the Republican base because those are largely blue-collar jobs.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Chairman, we have about a minute or so left here. Yesterday, the president met with Ukrainian President Zelensky. What should Americans take away from that conversation? And do you believe that maybe the end is near and we're going to be able to stop sending billions of dollars over there?
That's a good question. I hope so. I hope they're able to end in a way that's stable and that, obviously when you're talking about negotiation, usually the best negotiation is one where nobody's satisfied or the best settlement in a case like that. I think that's probably where you're going to end up. The question is, how unsatisfied, for instance, are the Russians going to be? The big piece in all of this is what more are the Europeans going to do to carry their own weight? And, of course, the president has been pushing hard on that score for a long time now, since his first term. And you're hearing him continue to talk more about it. And I think now the Europeans are kind of finally getting it in their head that they're not going to be able to rely on the United States to essentially be, their defense ministry,
right.
Going forward. They're going to have to actually do things themselves because, that's essentially what has allowed them to subsidize the lavish welfare states that they have in Europe because basically they haven't had to pay for defense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, yesterday the president, evidently President Zelensky talked like, well, I don't know that I can convince my parliament of this, and President Trump volunteered to go over and help him. So if anybody can close the deal, the president can do so. Chairman Drew McKissick, it's always a pleasure. Happy New Year to you, and we'll talk next year.
Happy New Year. Have a great one.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.